ourselves. But the fact is that we now clearly are coming to the end of 40 years of neoliberalism, neo-Thatcherism, call it what you like. We had, after the Second World War, 40 years roughly of a social democratic consensus. We've had 40 years of a neo-liberal consensus. We're now coming through, that's broken and something new is arising. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. History is not pre-written. It's made by people taking action, doing politics like you are by sitting in this room here today, listening and talking and exchanging ideas. The future is being made right now today. The future is wide open. What we have is people on the far right, people who say, oh, it's a difficult, dangerous world, we've got to grab what we can for us and ours and shove those others away, whoever those others are, build walls to keep them out. Pretty Patel, nets in the channel, etc. Where I come from, where I believe is the foundation of universal basic income, is the understanding that there's enough resources on this planet for everyone to have a decent life, for us to repair nature, to restore the climate systems, if we just share them out fairly. And UBI is not only, I would say, a way of doing that. Universal basic income is a way of delivering that, of freeing up, of opening up the opportunities, the resources, the time, the energy, people making choices for themselves. So to finish, and we're going to have some questions in a moment, so allowing time for questions, but UBI is, I would say, the ultimate democracy. It's giving people the chance to make their own choices, to make decisions for themselves, for their communities, their households, their lives, their futures. So UBI does everything from sharing out the commons, from delivering a feminist vision, to tackling the climate emergency, to stopping benefit traps. It does all of those things, but ultimately universal basic income is democracy. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Natalie. We maybe can fit in one question, I think, or two questions maximum. Does anybody have a burning question that they would like to ask Natalie Bennett? Okay.
I can believe that we have a chance of persuading people about UBI. A few years ago, when the economy was relatively stable, let's say relatively, and you've talked about instability, but how would our arguments for getting UBI in now face the inflation in the very things it's designed there to help people with? You know, housing, fuel, food. Those are the things we're seeing terrible inflation in. I see that as now a very difficult argument to make to my less green colleagues about how we can now afford to introduce that.
Well, thanks very much for the question, and it is a crucial one, and I think that I tried to present this in a way as the arguments, the debate that we have around universal basic income. It does move with the times, it moves with tackling where we are. I think one of the things, first of all, to look at is where does that inflation come from? I was just actually put out a tweet on this very subject this morning. Shell has announced its latest quarter profits, and they're absolutely massive. And it's one of the things, if you look at what's happening with inflation now, part of it is, yes, the resource increase in fossil fuels, the problems with supply chain disruption around the world, etc. Now, those are because we've built our society on fossil fuels, and we've built our society on globalisation, on fast fashion, on shipping things around the world. Now, those things have to change for environmental reasons, but they have to change also for economic reasons. So if we change the structure of the economy, there is no reason why there should be rampant inflation in the cost of renewables. Indeed, there isn't. The cost of renewables is actually going down. If we restructure our economy much more around local economies where money goes round and round in societies rather than the globalised system we have now, relying on supply chains and breaking down more and more. So we have to make those changes. And as we make those changes, that element of inflation is going to disappear. But I started off by speaking about the shelving profits. And one of the things that's interesting here, the government is now saying, oh, we can't have rises in wages because of inflation. But we have the inflation without there having been any significant rises in wages at all. In fact, even before this latest bout of inflation started, real wages were only at the level they were in 2009. So it's not wages that are going up that's causing inflation, it's company profits. And I was talking about this on LBC, in fact it's my pinned tweet at the top of my feed at the moment, where a very large chunk of that inflation is going straight into company profits, straight into dividends, straight into tax havens. So, just as nothing is a panacea, we have to have a society that stops allowing multinational companies and rich individuals to evade massive sums of tax, to have historically hugely low tax levels. They have to pay their way. And so, where does the inflation come from? It comes from the current structure of our economy. Restructuring our economy, universal basic income is a very basic way of turning our economy around in a different way. So, the fact is, and one of the ways that I think in arguments it's quite useful to say to people, so do you think in the current system there's any solutions to the current system? And the answer to that is obviously no. If you've broken down the wall with a sledgehammer, you don't use the sledgehammer to build the wall up again. So we need new answers, because the messes we're in now are messes created by the way we're doing things now. So that kind of very simple, is often the violates that they've been going, yeah, I have an answer for that. So hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you. We're going to take one more question. Please do come in and join us. Please grab a seat. Don't worry, we need to shuffle. We're going to take one more question, I believe from one of our panelists. Would you like to use this session?
Yeah. I'm Dave Beck. I'm a lecturer in social policy at the University of Salford. I'm also co-chair of the UBI Lab Greater Manchester. Obviously I'm an advocate of and a supporter of UBI, but I do have one burning question, one niggling problem that I can't yet resolve, and hopefully you can help me with that. So if more people have got more money to spend, will it contribute to increasing people's disposal, the way that people treat the materials that they use and disposal of it? So what I'm thinking about is, will it encourage people to throw away more products, to rebuy more products? So will we become a more wasteful society?
So David, thanks for everything you're doing with the UBI labs. I think that's quite easy to answer, and it kind of relates to the challenge that people often encounter when they application UBI, which is ultimately what causes inflation. So I think the two things are related. The fact is that UBI doesn't massively increase people's income, except those people who have literally zero income at all now. The Green Party, in both the 2015 and 2019 elections, had fully worked through budgeted, worked out methods of delivery levels and UBI set levels. And what generally happens is, as I said, people on less than zero money, less than £10,000 a year, they're the ones who benefit most from UBI. Once people are earning more than about somewhere between 20 and £24,000 a year, they don't actually end up with any more money. So what you're doing is you're having a redistribution, so that people who literally cannot meet their basic needs now meet their basic needs. But millionaires still get it, but you take it back off them more in tax, so millionaires don't have any more money. So you're not making it, people don't just suddenly have an extra £100 a week that they can just go and spend however they like. If they had that now, people would be spending it on basic decent fruit and vegetables. That's the reality for so many people now, is they can't afford to buy even basic things like that. So it's not about suddenly creating massive amounts more of money. There's a whole other argument that perhaps you might get into this afternoon, right? We've got time now, about how do you create this money. But the idea is not this is just a whole heap of extra money. It's money that is being spread around society in different ways. It's giving people security. And someone who's relies entirely on the universal basic income, and there's a reason why the word basic is in there. It's meant to give you a basically decent standard of life. But the assumption is that most people of working age will do something else, work a bit more as well. but it's not just handing people free money and saying, hey, go down to the pound shop and buy some more stuff, or hey, get some more junk. And as I said in my introduction, the fact is that insecurity drives so much consumption now. Perhaps the extreme case study of this, and something that people often point to, is Instagram influencers, etc. And there's currently fast fashion, a whole marketing in clothing that's only made to be put on for photos and not really actually worn. It's more or less just straight over body. Now that's because we have a society that's so competitive, people are struggling so much to survive. That's what they've got to do. So I don't think that UBI would increase consumption except among groups of people in our society. And of course, we're looking at a global scale, it's getting more through, who need to increase their consumption so they can eat fresh vegetables and fruit, so they can actually have a nice warm coating winter and decent shoes. Actually, I was at in the House of Lords the other day talking about the sort of the £10 shoe problem. Someone who's got very little cash has to buy a £10 pair of shoes, even though they know they're going to fall apart in 3 months' time, and then they've got to buy another one and another one and another one. Someone who's got a bit of cash in their pocket can buy a £100 pair of shoes that last for 10 years, and that's much less resource use. And it's also, of course, much cheaper and better for the person who gets a more comfortable pair of shoes. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you so much for wonderful questions. I would like to invite Professor Matthew Johnson to come and join. Thank you, Natalie.